A little bit of light humor to get you ready for what we're going to talk about. One time I was telling Ian about it. I said in front of one of my classmates' wives, I made the statement, "It's hard being a man," and she laughed. And it's always this thing between men and women. And so saying it's hard to be a man doesn't take away from anything that women have. And I was in the hospital with all my colon problems, and the nurse that I had was quick to let me know, don't nothing beat giving birth. Okay, well, I'm in here and my bowels are killing me, but you gave birth. And so I was thinking this morning, one reason that I am glad that I'm not a woman is because any time that you're in an audience and you decide you don't like to hear something, it's easier to get up and leave than it is for a woman. My mother would be having to swipe up everything she had, grab her purse, and that's what happens, isn't it? I could just get up and walk out. The ladies have to get all their stuff together. And I say that this morning. I don't think any of y'all would. We got people watching online. Don't get up and walk out just for what we're going to talk about. At some point, the church is going to have to talk about the nation. This is not me coming in here saying anyone which way to vote, things like that. That's not what we're doing. I just want to give you some encouraging thoughts when you start having all the different news outlets. Look, y'all. People out here saying, well, I don't watch CNN, I watch Fox. And then the other crowd saying, I don't watch Fox, I watch CNN. Well, you know what both those news networks do to all their viewers? Ain't nobody feeling good. Everybody is equally stirred up. It does not matter what news network you watch. So this morning, I would like for us to talk about some of these things. When we've gotten worked up, what to think about. And I will tell you, Wednesday I was quite worked up. And all of this that I'm looking at this morning applies to me as much as it does anybody else. We are first and foremost Christians. Our whatever patriotism, whatever you would like to say, is dedicated to the Lord's church above everything else. So before we do that, let's look at this. This is an illustration we've used in the past. Do you know what these stories? I will tell you, I have never watched or read Gone with the Wind. I think it's a romance. I have no idea. Everybody just knows that one line. You know why this movie was famous? It was the first movie to have profanity in it. I could be wrong, but that's the way I remember it. Romeo and Juliet, two young people fall in love, secretly get married. Nothing wrong with having a secret wedding. But everybody looks at Romeo and Juliet and say, oh, that's so beautiful. I like Romeo and Juliet. And then there's The Notebook. This story, two young people somewhere in southern Georgia, and it's just this great big romance filled with all kinds of turmoil that these people overcome, and it's just so fantastic. And you know what I say? In reality, nobody wants that. What do you want? You would really like to have smooth sailing. If you read The Notebook, they go all kinds of time separated from each other, and then they get linked back up. You know what would be better than that? Skipping the separation period. I'd like to have my romance just long-lasting. Doesn't make for quite a good a book. Romeo and Juliet, how about we not die in our youth? You don't want that. You want it to be easy. Pretty much we agree with that. It's nice to read about. It is horrific to live through. Nobody wants to do it. Everybody wants this. Jacob served 7 years. I use this as a point to say the Bible, I say, is classic literature as much as anything else is. Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed unto him but a few days for the love he had to her. And people read that and say, that's so sweet. That is still 7 years of hard labor to get married. And a lot of people say, forget it. Hey, you would like to be able to have it without 7 years hard labor. Now let's transition. We're all pretty much, I cannot imagine that somebody in here saying, no, I want 7 years of hard labor before I can get married. This is what people say now. I want to follow God like they followed God in the Bible. And I don't mean, like when we have it in quotes, hey, I want to worship the way that they worshiped in the New Testament. Why? Because it's what God asked for. I'm all for that. But if you ever hear these people saying, we have these controversial matters, and then an armchair quarterback comes in, he says, let me tell you what I would have done if I was in there. I would have told them this and that, and I would have, there's the saying, on the Bible map, Dan is the very top, Beersheba is the bottom, and they say, I would have cut them from Dan to Beersheba, and they got all this stuff about what they would have done. People say, I want to follow God like they did in the Bible. No, you don't. You might romanticize. We might romanticize and say, I'd like to be a part of that. And here's my point. I would say that more than 80% of the Bible was written during a national uproar or a time of unrest. The Exodus. Somebody says, oh, if God would just deliver us from our problems. And I'm with that, if God would deliver us from our problems. But boy, it's an orchestration to be delivered from your problems, Exodus style. Right? What does that entail? It means leaving everything that you think is a family heirloom behind. Somebody says, well, they took some stuff out. Look, they weren't going through everything saying, put that knick-knack in a bag and bring that with us. No. Bare essentials. Now, can we make a point about that, bare essentials? That's really the way that we ought to be living anyway, isn't it? It's fine to have stuff, but it's even better to live in a lifestyle where you can cut loose in order to do what you need to at a moment's notice. If you want to call it minimalism, that's fine. If you want to call it preparedness, that's fine too. But this is what these people are doing in the Bible. And they had to make these conscious decisions. Leaving the known, as bad as it might be, for the unknown, and who knows what it would be, and this is what their unknown looked like. If I had been in the 40-year wandering of Numbers 14, your children shall wander in the wilderness 40 years, and bear your whoredoms until your carcass be wasted in the wilderness. After the number of the days in which you search the land, even 40 years, each day for a year, shall you bear your iniquities, even 40 years, and you shall know my breach of promise. Y'all, if I had lived in that time frame, I would not have been super confident. I do not beat up on these people when I read this text. I would have been the person saying, we ain't got no water, all we're doing is eating bread, and we don't know where we're going, but we know we're going to be out here for 40 years. And these people were following God. And we talk about, people say, put me in, coach, all this different stuff. Do you know what I'm really working at? I'm saying, I have not said anything publicly about what all's going on. We're talking about it right now. I hope the worst doesn't happen. Somebody would say, do you want things to get worse, get better, or stay the way they are? Stay the way they are. Do I want things to get better? Yes. But I'm very happy to be in here this morning worshiping God with you, getting to share in our fellowship, and getting freedom to study the Bible. But I have to look at these situations and recognize with myself, I would have been one of the complainers. And for people who would look at the Bible and romanticize, and we're going to be making some points out of this, I just have to show you the great majority of the Bible is this way. Joshua 1 and 10. Somebody asked me the question, or you ask yourselves, as far as church work goes, when do we get to have smooth sailing? When do we just get to take it easy? If you read the Bible, almost never. Because when you look at Joshua, what are they doing? You have come out of national uproar in the Exodus. You have wandered 40 years. And now every man that's 20 years old and upward is going into a war. Joshua commanded the officers of the people, saying, pass through the host and command the people, saying, prepare you victuals, for within 3 days you shall pass over the Jordan to go in and to possess the land which the Lord your God giveth you to possess it. Now, and again, I would hope that we don't see a war. Do y'all remember when we were doing our Kings and Chronicles classes and we were going through all these portions of the Scripture, but we were connecting it to current events and historical events, and we just said, you can't go forever not having a war. They're bound to happen. So what I hear people say a lot of times is, they say the people on the outside who are clamoring for war have never seen war. That's really not an argument, is it? I don't want a war. But saying the people who are asking for it have never seen it, these people have never seen it. Their previous generation died in the wilderness. All these people know straight up is, we're wanderers. We go around and we're headed somewhere. They don't know war. But they still have the responsibility to follow God. Book of Judges. They don't follow God in Joshua to the real extent, and what happens? They pay for it. Judges chapter 2, the anger of the Lord was hot against Israel, and he delivered them into the hands of spoilers that spoiled them, and he sold them into the hands of their enemies round about, so that they could not any longer stand before their enemies. Whithersoever they went out, the hand of the Lord was against them for evil, as the Lord had said, and as the Lord had sworn unto them, and they were greatly distressed. Nevertheless, the Lord raised up judges which delivered them out of the hand of those that spoiled them. Again, the entirety of the people are constantly having these hardships. It does not get any better. They think their solution is, they say, give us a king, 1 Samuel 8, give us a king and we'll be doing better. No, they're not doing any better. Let me stop here and pause. Made our little joke about women grabbing their purses and walking out. Nobody's walked out. I would hope that nobody's going to watch on the internet and be upset about this. I honestly think that this lesson could appease whatever political party you're with, because we're talking about the Christian responsibility in the midst of everybody's stuff. Let's look at this. The men of Israel said, have you seen this man that has come up? Surely to defy Israel he has come up. And it shall be that the man who kills him, the king will enrich him with great riches, and will give him his daughter, and make his father's house free in Israel. And David spake to the men that stood by, saying, what shall be done to the man that killeth this Philistine, and takes away the reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine, that he should defy the armies of the living God? And David said, what have I now done? Is there not a cause? You get a picture in 1 Samuel 17 of the entirety of the nation of Israel's army, or however many people they had taken out that particular day, everybody just giving up. And the king himself sitting there, everybody giving up. And what does he have to do? David. He's got to be David. Regardless of what's happening around us, what do we have to do? Be Christians. I don't know if it's going to come through, so I'm just going to say it now. What I think is being communicated by the fact that over 80% of our Bible is written during a time of national turmoil and unrest and upheaval is to say, when these things start going on, you and I have to keep our Christian character about ourselves. And what that means is, if I know, like I say, Wayne, I'm just picking Wayne out, all this stuff is going on, Wayne, what all does Wayne have over his property? Well, Wayne wouldn't know if I borrowed it. It's all these different things. We have to keep ourselves who we need to be and keep our mission ahead of us. You know, you don't really know what you're asking for, do you? So, you know, I've heard a lot of people, and I've been one of those people who would pray for it, that we would get some type of a calamity for people to wake up. Hey, somebody says we're not getting a calamity. Somebody says we're getting a calamity. I hope people wake up. They're not going to wake up if we don't keep teaching them. They got Bibles at home, and they're dusty. We have to be giving people thoughts and messages that are going to incorporate some type of way of thinking to them. It's time to read your Bible. Kings, Chronicles, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Daniel, Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, and Zephaniah. Prophets and historical books in your Old Testament, and they all are written during national calamity. And what are they called to do? They're called to be outstanding citizens. When you read, I believe it's Amos, they've got people in there. We talked about price gouging in Bible class. In the book of Amos, it says that the rich were so greedy they would not even allow the poor to have dust on the top of their head. If you got something, give it to us. Trading people for a pair of shoes. We have to keep, if we can say it this way, our Christian wits about us, regardless of what's going on. And then somebody says, well, Caleb, all that is the Old Testament. You're talking about 80% of the Bible. That was just Old Testament documentation. In Matthew 2:16, you basically have the Institute of Government killing all these 2-year-olds and under. They were not having good times at any time. They were hard. People are losing their children. And it's not a comfort to say, well, at least we have our child, when all of your neighbors surrounding you are wailing for the loss of their child. Acts 18:1 and 2. You move on, you say, well, that's, Jesus being born. It's going to ease up. No, it's not. When you get to Acts 18, the Roman government tells all the Jews to dispense out of Rome. Can't live here. We have no idea what this looks like. We say, well, we know what it looks like. Historically, we know what it's looked like. I'm saying we have no idea what it would be like to go through it. And as we come in here this morning, what we're really saying is, if we ever start going through it, don't lose your Christian sense. Be good to your neighbor. Value the things that are valuable to God, like Philippians chapter 4 would say, Matthew 24. Acts 18 is actually going to be happening before the events of Matthew 24, where Jesus says, do you see all these things? The stones of the temple and the building of the temple? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. So, Here's a transition. 80% of our Bible was written during national upheaval, and they got stuff done. I don't think that they had freedom of ideas or speech. Did they? In John 9, they can't talk. They said, ask our son, he's of age. If we say this, we're going to be kicked out of the synagogue. They were afraid. I don't know if you feel afraid. You might just be saying, I don't think a thing about this. Hey, I wish I could be as cool as you. But if you're looking at stuff and you're saying, I don't know about this, let's just talk about this. Let's be honest. But don't let me lose you here. Who is really up on political positionings? Do you know both sides of the political aisle say the exact same things to the other people over here? I heard somebody talking trash. I don't believe in global warming. But I heard somebody talking trash about global warming, and I said, well, you just go ahead and tell me why it's not real. And they said, well, I don't have a science degree, but I do have common sense. That's not an answer. And people on the other side say the exact same thing. A Republican says something, and the other side says, well, I have common sense, and that ain't it. We're not really up on these things, but we allow ourselves to be worked up every 4 years. Foreign aid. Now look, don't let me lose you. But I'm saying, y'all, we get worked up about stuff. I get worked up, and I have no clue where my tax money is going. And you don't either. And people talk about what's going to foreign aid. My people foreign aid? I am a Marshallese citizen. They ain't getting no foreign aid. These people don't even have indoor plumbing. Who knows where that money's going, because it's not going to them. Don't have paved roads. The 5-mile causeway between Ebi and Gucci Goo is a literal dump. I have Marshallese citizenship, and then my American citizenship has some wherewithal to complain, and I don't understand it. Somebody says, well, our tax dollars are going to accessible education for poor kids. Would you talk to a school teacher? Our tax dollars are going to the education of the poor kids. Would you talk to a school teacher and let them tell you that they can't teach those kids? Why? Because they don't have a home life where they get disciplined enough to even sit through a 30-minute class in public school. Your tax dollars aren't doing anything for the public school system. Why? Someone says, well, because the politicians are siphoning off the money. I'm not even saying that. I'm saying because the kids are not molded by a mom and a dad before they got to a classroom. Who's going to fix that? We are. We go and talk to these people, and remember we passed out the bulletin during door knocking and told the mamas in town, stop cussing your kids. They go to the school and then they cuss their teacher, and the teachers wonder why. I'll tell you why. There's no religion in town. We got marriage from God in Genesis chapter 2, and then we started letting DC adulterers regulate it. That makes no sense. Like Ian and I say with atheists. They do not believe in God. They hate the Bible. But they are honest enough when they're asked the question, is the current divorce rate in America good or bad for America? And the atheist said, it is bad. The moment that we brought up the Bible, they lost their heads. They could not believe we were going to start talking about the Bible. But when asked a straight question like that, is it good? Is divorce good for America? No, it's bad for America. We're losing that. And then somebody says, well, tax dollars provides free stuff. If tax dollars provide free stuff, it's not free stuff. None of this is for us to be getting worked up about. There's nothing free in life. Somebody's going to be paying for it. Why I have point number 3, I would just like for people's marriages to be fixed for the sake of number 2. Help those kids. And let's say this, y'all. People, I say it, people are people. And it's a job to be married. It's good to be married, but it's a job. And if you're not willing to do a good job in your marriage, you're probably not going to do a good job in your second marriage. And somebody says, well, it's not me, it's them. That is what everybody says. Surely we can do something better than, what, 1 and 2. 1 and 2 divorce rate. We're not up, I am telling you, we are not up on the political agenda, so why do we get so worked up about it? Most of us are won by charisma. I was talking with somebody else. They were old enough, a little bit, I guess, and I asked them, I said, when you were a kid, what did you think about JFK? And they said, I did not like JFK. I said, why not? And they said, I don't know, but I know my dad hated JFK. Everybody is operating to that extent. I went to school with somebody who met Bill Clinton. This man was in the military. They had this giant flood in Arkansas, and he was in the National Guard, I believe. No, he was like above that. No disrespect to National Guard folk. But he had this job, and they told him, don't do anything until so-and-so gets here. Well, the flood's happening, and he's saying, I could see what would fix it. And so he breaks orders, and he fixes it. He broke command, but he was basically rewarded. Bill Clinton was the governor, and he had him come to the governor's mansion and have dinner with him, and he told us what it was like meeting Bill Clinton. He said, that dude was a smooth operator. He said everything down to the moment we shook hands. He said every bit of it was personable, and he just said, unbelievable. Bill Clinton, he said, had that sway over you, and he's not even a Democrat. But he said he had that sway. Obama, Ronald Reagan, all these individuals, they're charismatic figures. It's what they do. But they don't know you. And let's say this, have any of them died for you? You know, people label Ronald Reagan as the first adulterer in office. That's unfair. Everybody knows that JFK was sleeping around while he was in office. What are we expecting out of these people? You get a 4 to 8 year window. They're not going to do that much. But it does allow us to get at each other's throats. People on the outside, I wish they wouldn't do that. I wish they wouldn't get so worked up. So let me talk to you about it this morning. January 6th happens. Somebody might hear this lesson and they say, Caleb is so stupid to think that there was any authenticity to January 6th. Somebody say, doesn't Caleb know every bit of January 6th was orchestrated? Look, I'm not trying to argue with you about that. But I'll tell you this, when I saw citizens step foot on the Senate floor, that was it for me. It looked real. I don't know about it, but let me tell you this. After I got settled down and I talked with several members of the church, I'm talking about Martinsville, Danville, I went to bed. And this is all I want to share with you this morning. When thou liest down, thou shalt not be afraid. Yea, thou shalt lie down, and thy sleep shall be sweet. So I went to bed, and I basically just said, this is where we are. It might be real, it may not be, but this is where we are. And I just thought how good we have it. I've already talked about the Marshallese who don't even have indoor plumbing. It should not be that difficult for me to convince you that we have it fantastically. So there's a movie where all these guys are incarcerated robbers, and they all have this plan. They broke out, and they have this plan about when they're going to find their treasure, how they're going to spend it. And one of them says, when we get it, it'll all be feather beds and silk sheets from here on out. So I don't know about feather beds and silk sheets, but I will tell you, we went to bed on January 6th, and she said, I changed the sheets and I put the linen sheets on. I slid in to those linen sheets. Oh, it's so comfortable. I'm having such a good time. Heat, can you believe that? Heat coming on. And then so y'all know we got a cat. And I thought, it's nice to own a cat instead of having to be eating one. You just go to the store, you get your groceries, you come home, we have it totally made. And then I basically started thinking about, if this is real, who do I need to be in contact with? And I thought in the moment of two people. And I thought, Betsy will be okay because she's still with all of her family in Arizona. And then I thought of Jackie because she doesn't have anybody around her. And James 1:27 says, for those people, kids who don't have a dad and women who do not have men to care for them, and when it says visit, it doesn't mean pop in and say, hey, how y'all doing? It really means to tend to their needs. He says that's pure religion. Luke 10:27-29, There are plenty of people that are still in need. They need something. Maybe they're not a fatherless person or a widow. But he says the two greatest commandments are to love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul. And then he says, and the second is likened to the first, you love your neighbor as yourself. And he says, who is my neighbor? Everybody. Everybody is your neighbor. And it, like we said in the Bible class, somebody says, well, you start looking at who you can help and somebody's going to be taking advantage of you. Well, then there are some sincere, honest, hard-up people who just need some help, and they're not getting it. Why? Because we're worried about who's going to burn us. 1 Timothy 4:13. So, everything is a skewed view. People who say, I don't watch Fox, I watch CNN. People who say, I watch CNN, I watch Fox. I don't trust any of them. And I don't care who's who. People are operating. Sometimes they're operating with just as much information as you have. They're just putting a spin on it. Why? They got to sell commercials. That's what the news broadcast is for, to sell commercials. So I went to bed, and 1 Timothy 4:13, till I come, give attendance to reading, to exhortation, to doctrine. So what I did when I went to bed was I read a little bit out of one of the four, Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. And then I read a small portion out of a book written out of the 1800s of these people who had come out of Presbyterianism. They found the truth of the New Testament, and you know what they were doing? It's in the 1800s, right? So 1776 is fresh on these people's minds to some extent, and they just said, so-and-so is meeting, so-and-so is meeting, these people are coming to the truth, and we're getting to hear about all this Christian growth. It's fantastic, and they said, thank God for the freedom. So I just read about somebody who was having a good time. You say, I wasn't having a good time on January 6th. Well, you can read about somebody who was, and basically say, this could possibly be around the corner for us. Can I say this to you this morning and the people who are watching on the internet? I have heard Republicans say about Democrats. They say, I don't know how a Christian could vote Democrat. Can I say this? I hope that none of us have this stuff held against us. Does that make sense? People are operating at what they think is the best. People are saying, we think this person's going to help out the little man, and we do X, Y, Z in the political realm. I hope it doesn't get held against me. And I hope it doesn't get held against you. Of all the things that are going on in the world, and of all the things that I have to wrestle with on my own self, I'm saying just me, Caleb, man, Romans 7, wrestling with myself, and then somebody comes along and says I'm going to hell because of my political standings. If you knew the full extent, right? That's everybody. If you knew the full extent of everybody, I think the last thing on the list was, who'd you vote for? 2012. If you want to make a difference, talk to your neighbor. These people in Washington don't care about you. Talk to your neighbor, and you could find out a whole lot about your neighbor. And I'm saying, y'all, these people don't have anybody. Some of them you're going to say, well, Caleb, they don't have anybody because they're so misbehaving and so ugly and so blah, blah, blah. I get it. But some of these people are just sweet people, and they don't know any better. I'm saying this to y'all too. So when I took piano lessons, my piano teacher did not have TV. And back then, we were pretty much just on TV. We weren't really hitting the internet too hard. We were starting to, because I know I did tell her about it. But one day I was coming out of my piano lessons, and a Pentecostal preacher was coming in, and I knew him. His name was Chad. And I start talking like we're talking, serious talk in the driveway, me and Chad. And she says to me, how do you know Chad? And I said, Chad runs BTW. And she said, oh yeah, I know a little bit about that, but I don't have TV. I said, you've never seen Chad's show? And she said, no. And I started telling her a little bit of the things, like the vulgar stuff that Chad talked about on his TV. She said, I cannot believe that. And I said, it's real. And she said, well, I wouldn't know. I don't have TV. Here's what I'm really saying. Where would you be if it weren't for what does the Bible say as far as your Bible study? It's nice to have help, isn't it? I'm saying you're being honest. You're doing your due diligence in your Bible study. You're really a person who respects the truth, but you just haven't accumulated all of it yet. Now imagine doing every bit of it on your own. And the new year has come up and you say, I need to go to church. Where are you going to go? How are you going to make up your mind where you're going to go? And then somebody says, just stay at home. I didn't know it was going to turn into this big old research paper. Catholic, Methodist, Episcopalian, what have you. Look, y'all, these people need help. And we have to keep our mind engaged to say, I'm a helping hand. While I have the time, I'm a helping hand to these people. And really, when you look at all the stuff that's going on around us, like, if you just say, it is what it is. So, there are people out there, they are not fazed by this. And they've been consistently telling themselves long enough, they've been consistently telling themselves, Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, what have you, they are politicians. It's their job to be in politics. What are they going to do? Fix their problems where they don't need to be in the job anymore? So there are some people out there, they're just sitting by and they're saying, this is just how it goes. Get used to it. Job 12:23, this is how it goes. Job said that the Lord increases nations and destroys nations. He enlarges nations, and then He straighteneth them again. You know, I bet everybody living in Jerusalem, they never thought that Jerusalem was going to be squashed in AD 70. Then you move 400 years later, everybody's in Rome. I bet you there are people going around with sweatshirts saying, make Rome great again. Then what happens? It's gone. England's out. America is in. You're just swapping, right? You're just swapping where it's going to be. But I would like to think, y'all, you recognize that I'm saying this morning. I need to hear it. Ian will tell you I need to hear it. I would like to think that we all would just have this way of thinking. So, Ian, here's some of the political stuff that I say. And then on top of that, Ian gives me this series of books, and it's called Gulag Archipelago, and it's about Russia, right? Like 1940s Russia and all these people that are being arrested. And the book, this is a guy who lived through it, and he wrote in the book, and he said, I was reading this, January 6th, I'm reading the book. And he says, people being arrested, he said, it could have been your milkman. It could have been your mailman. It could have been some religious fanatics coming up the stairs of your apartment building, you're headed out and they grab you. And what are you going to say? He said, nobody's expecting to get arrested, so they don't know what to say, and they can't warn anybody else. They're breaking into your house in the middle of the night, and they're taking you in, and they're bringing you down, and no charges. You know what I was thinking? Man, just kill me, rather than all this other stuff, because chapter 3 is how they torture you. You know, I had a teacher, and that's what he told his daughters. He said, if you're coming out of the grocery store, he said, don't ever park next to a van. And he said, if you come out and you get the idea that these people are going to grab you, he said, make sure they kill you in the parking lot, because when they get you in that van, you'll wish you were dead. Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. Philippians 1:21 and 24, Paul, who wrote a great majority of the New Testament text, his mindset was, I would like to get out of here. Well, in our getting out of here, let's not forget to be taking folk with us. We cannot be the people who just say, boy, I hate everything that's going on and I want to get out of here, and part of that means get away from all these people. No, we got to be people. To be around them, try to talk to them. And, you know, I had some neighbors of mine, and it was a very weird setting. I don't know what was going on. Y'all hear me on TV say don't let people get in the driver's seat? Well, I didn't know what was coming, so I was never in the driver's seat to begin with. But they bring me in. I'm sitting in the apartment with these 3 guys, and they start talking about cars. We'd like to buy a certain car. I said, well, it's not my car, but I'll tell the owner that you're interested in it. Okay. And then they start talking about coronavirus. Then they start talking to me about Donald Trump. And at some point, it's me and these 3 guys. I wasn't like thinking they were going to beat me up or anything, but I said, what is this? Y'all brought me in here just to have all this stuff? What are we getting out of this? Ain't none of them doctors. I'm not a doctor. They're not politicians. I'm not a politician. They're just grilling me on this stuff. And I said, how about we start talking about the Bible now? Now that I'm getting a hold of myself and I know what's up, let's talk about the Bible. And that's about the time when I started making my way to the exit, right? Because nobody wants to talk about the Bible. It was weird. But this is what I'm saying. All these opportunities. It does not matter. You know, whoever you voted for and you hear somebody else start talking trash about them, you could just say, you know, maybe you're right. Maybe that's the truth. People let us down. The Bible doesn't. People let us down. Jesus is not going to. I would like to have this to be our way of thinking. Whatever it is, and we've got to say something. I know people are going to watch this and not like it. And both sides are not going to like it. But I would really ask, you know, it's going to have to be the question at some point. You die of a long, healthy life, where are you going? Somebody says, well, Caleb, you may not live to see long, healthy life. You may die in a war. Fine. You're going to be dying with me, whoever said that to me. Are you ready to go to heaven? Because I am. And I don't mean like I'm eager to see it. I'm saying my soul is prepared. 1 Peter 1, 3 through 5, Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, which according to His abundant mercy has begotten us again unto a lively hope by the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead, to an inheritance incorruptible, undefiled, and that fadeth not away, reserved in heaven for you, who are kept by the power of God through faith unto salvation, ready to be revealed in the last time. When he says that the Lord has begotten us, a good Bible student is going to recognize that's John 3:5. Except a man be born of water and the Spirit, he cannot enter into the kingdom of God. This is 1 Peter 1. When you get to 1 Peter chapter 3, he's going to say, whereunto even baptism does also now save us. If you want to go to heaven, I don't know why you would fight so hard about going God's way. There's nothing to joke about, nothing to play around with, and I'm talking about, someone says, well, we know it's not like a laughing matter. No. This is nothing to take a chance on. Somebody says, well, I think I'm okay where I'm at. I know that I am very much fine where I am because I'm in Christ. Reserved in heaven for you. I do not have a desire to stick around here. I hear a lot of people that talk about we're going to get to be on the earth forever. I don't know where you got that. This text clearly says that our reward is reserved in heaven. And I'm able to be so confident about it because it says here, kept by the power of God through faith. This doesn't mean that God is like giving me special power to overcome sin and not commit sin. It means that He is the entity or the being that is keeping me saved. How? Through my faith. Faith in what? In the blood and the sacrifice of His Son. I don't want to do bad things because it's going to hurt y'all. It's going to hurt me. It's not the ideal living style. That's why I don't want to do them. But as far as me being saved from those things, Jesus is saving me from those things. This morning, I don't know if this is what you thought it was going to be. Hopefully none of y'all think this was a wasted Sunday morning. I hope that it's encouraging. And really the idea, y'all, is to take this information and talk to somebody about it. I am surrounded in my building, like right now the way things are going, I could talk to people about, don't you think there's a better way? And they say, well, sure, if we do economic blah, blah, blah. No, I'm saying everybody be concerned about your neighbor. Wouldn't that fix things? Something. Get them engaged in a spiritual conversation where the Bible is emphasized and where they have to think about their eternal state. That's why we're doing this. We want to go to heaven. We want to take people with us. That means we're going to have to talk to people. Now, I know that y'all talk to people, and I know you get the exact same responses we do. Not this Sunday. You know, next Sunday comes around and you say, well, you said last week, not this Sunday. How about this time? And it's fine, you know, say things to people. You can ask them, is it always going to be next Sunday? Or are you ever going to come with me? I'd really like you to come with me. Something. You be thinking about it while we think about these things. Now let's think about all this put together and say, really, and think about it, how blessed we are to be Christians. You got all the freedoms in the world. You got the blessings. So far, we've all lived good lives. Let's be thankful about it and think about these things. Mark's going to come up and lead us in a psalm of encouragement.